Hello. Hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am able to hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not confirmed. I hear like there are two people are joining. So is it only one person?
No idea about others.
Okay. Just wait for 2 minutes and then we can start it. The demo.
Yeah, sure, absolutely fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, brother. Hi, Prithik. It seems the other guy is not joining, so I start the class today. So I have overall 12 years of experience in the industry. So mainly I'm core in PLSQL. It's into completely development project which I am working on. And that's about me. So as an employee of SSIT Research, I'm from. This is a basic background about me. So can you please explain about yourself so that I can understand where how I can proceed to your way of understanding, explain to you so that you can understand it easily.
Sure. So myself, Pratik Manesha. So basically, I have same 12 years of experience working in IT. Currently, I'm working as an associate vice president in 𝐲𝐻𝐾 Technology Services Limited, Pune. So my role into it is like I am an ETL lead. I work on ab initio and Informatica technology, and currently I'm into machine learning. You can say projects. So basically, where we have deep data analysis, exploratory data analysis, and machine learning application. So my goal to understand Oracle and PLSQL is from two perspectives. Similar, we work in a regulatory space, so our downstream is nothing but Oracle database. So I wanted to ensure that I have a good understanding of my downstream. So that will help me to understand end-to-end reporting from project perspective. And secondly, when I want to advance my career into data analyst role or machine learning engineer, I want myself to be more comfortable with one of the data analysis tool apart from Python. So I thought of learning Oracle that will really add a value to my role.
That's a good introduction about yourself. And thanks for letting me know that. Yeah, so So let's start about like basically what is a database, why it is so important. Actually, for the demo purpose, I'm just giving a rough notes on it. So once it is we start, actually we can start it. So we can give you the presentation and also with the notes along with the like we do have like based on the topic we do have some questions, maybe an interview questions or maybe some type of questions which generally people has to work on it. So those type of information along with the presentation. That will go like this. So as of now, I'm just since it's a demo, I'm just giving the brief about the reference of it. So what is what we are covering. That's what which I'm going to talk about.
Sorry, your voice is breaking in between, so I'm unable to hear it clearly.
One second. Is it clear now?
Better now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, what I'm telling, right? So since it's a demo, I'm just giving a rough notes. So once we start actually the classes, so I can share the presentation along with the notes, and also will give you some questions based on the topic. Like it may be an interview questions or it may be some kind of a homework to you, so to solve your problem. That's how the class will go, right?
Okay.
Okay. Is it clear now?
Yeah, clear.
So when it comes to database management system, so it just started in 1970s. Okay? So basically, database management system is the organized way of like putting the all together information into putting information into an organized way. Because suppose you can take any supermarket or you can take your home. So what actually happens? So we do segregate in home. If you take it, we can segregate the rooms also. Like this can be a bedroom, this can be a kitchen. So, and in kitchen, if you go right, there will be a different kind of groceries. Those also will be arranged in a organized way so that everybody can access it easily. So same way when it comes to supermarket also, what we do like uh, any supermarket you can take, they have some segregation. Snacks will be in one place, and the balls and pulses will be in one place, and the shampoos and the other essentials for will be placed in one side, and the puja items will be in another place. So that's nothing but a segregated way of designing the information, or you can call it as a items into a place so that everybody can access it. Similarly, when it comes to database also, so whatever the information we give it to the system, so computer, that should be stored in a segregated way so that it can easily retrieve. So that is nothing but a database system. Whereas it comes to data, so data can be anything. So it can be an information related to your product, or it can be an information related to your person. So if you take about information about a person, so like maybe it's a personal information, or it's maybe an experience related information, or it may be an educational information. So or it may be in education information also there are segregations like what kind of education he studied. So what is this respect to marks where he studied it. So that kind of information, whatever it may be. So you can take any piece of item, and for that item, so what are all the different properties? So that properties, we call it as a data. So it can be anything. Any item you can take it, right? Any item or any person or anything you can take it into consideration. So that will have certain properties. So that properties we call it as a data. Or you can take a mobile also. The mobile also will have the certain properties, right? So altogether we call it as a data. So this data can be stored into a database. So that database, we have several things in the market, like when it comes to database. One is an Oracle database, and similar to that Oracle, we do have like a MS SQL. This is a MS SQL server, so which is developed by Microsoft. So they have their own database. And similarly, we have IBM. IBM also we have their own database. And also in Oracle, they have purchased MS MySQL. So MySQL also an Oracle product. So like that, there are plenty of databases are available. So like what we have in the currently, if you take the smartphones, there are multiple brands in smartphones, right? Everybody will have their own features, and they may have some advantages. Similarly, they may have some disadvantages. So we can choose whichever is fulfill our requirements. We can go and buy that a particular product from the market, and we can utilize. Similar way, so when a new customer comes into market, right, so he can choose like what is his requirement. So and who is providing, who is satisfying all those requirements. Based on that, those guys we can either they can choose an Oracle or a Microsoft product or an IBM product or some other. So that's where the people can go on. And when it comes to Oracles, they have started with a Oracle version 2. And it get evaluated from 2 to like a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 10, 11. And then so they jumped into 18 and then 19. And different versions of Oracle is evaluated. So like each version, they are adding some new features to the existing product, and they make Oracle as a different version. So that way they started versioning it. And previously, like whenever they are releasing an version, right, they went with a sequence of like 6, 7, 8, 9. So they are going with the sequence from 12C onwards, right? So it is released in 2012. So they started with a year branding. Similarly, current version is 2023 latest version Oracle. So they also went with the same year sequence, like why it is only 23, why not 24 or 25, right? So they are actually going with the year when they are releasing on it. So that's why they call it as 20. Similarly, we have is whenever they are releasing it, right? They are giving a, they are taking the year, so it's a representation to that specific version of it. And in between also, like each version to version, there are plenty of patches out there. Like so, like in this same, if you take an example of mobile, so we do have like a new version of software is coming up, or some bug fixes, like suppose there is some major bug is detected. So in order to suppress that bug, so they may fix that bug and they may release the patches. So in between, there are plenty of patches will be there. So those are also be part of it. So what actually happens, right? Whenever there is some patches or something, it is released and it is important to the customer. So the DBA team will take care about the upgrading that or applying the patch to the existing product version. So that's how it will go. And so this is about very basic about the Oracle database. So before Oracle database, there are other database like in the olden days. What actually happens? They are going with a file system. So file system is either it may be a notepad or it's a text file or it's an Excel file or it's a Excel file or CSV file. So they are actually storing the data into those particular formats. So what actually happens with the file system? The file system, what actually happens is there may be a chances of having a duplicate data. So how it will be like, suppose in a team of 10 members, we are there. And I also put some data, like I got some information, so to store this data into a particular texture, I stored it. And so in a meeting, so it was said that it has to be stored. And unknowingly, there is some other person also started putting that same information to the text. What actually happens eventually, same information will be copied. Since there is no restriction, like there is no identification by a file system stating that this information is already present in this file. So the file system is unable to identify that whether it is already there or not. So because of that, so there may be a chance of data redundancy. So and when you try to retrieve a particular information, like if there is a huge file, so you want to go and find a particular data, so it is very difficult and travel over the file and get the information. Right? So because of that, so it's now then it is evaluated into a hierarchical. In hierarchical model also, there are some certain advantages, certain disadvantages. Like in hierarchical model, what actually happens is there may be a root node, and in each root node, they will have several branches. So it will be just like an inverted tree, like there will be a root node will be there, and then followed by a step of branches. And each branch, that certain information will be stored in it. So when we try to do coding to a particular, when you try to code in order to retrieve a particular information, you need to remember, you need to write the code in such a sequence, like where it is actually stored. Like, let me show you an example. Will be a root node. Each root node will have a branches. Again, these branches will have sub branches. So root node will have a three branches B1, B2, B3, and B1 is having SB1 and SB2, and B2 is having SB3 and SB4. Like that, we have sub branches, and your information is stored in suppose SB3. So you need to give a path. Like this is my root node, and you need to go to B2, and then from B2 you need to go to B3. So this type of coding also has to be implemented in a front-end layer so that they can read the data. So it will be very difficult. Suppose if you are changing from this node to that node, your entire programming also will be changed. So that is the disadvantage of having a hierarchical method. So because of that, so now that is next level, it will be moved into relational database management systems. In relational database management system, what actually happens is they comes with a feature called a table. A table is consists of a columns and rows. So column is not
Sorry, sorry to disturb you in between. So when you talk about hierarchical database, so it is like a parent-child relationship. So when you say that when we want to update a child, it will impact parent, and that is where it is difficult to even retrieve the data into it, right?
correct.
Okay.
Even for retrieval, or if you want to do a modifications, right? So there will be a you need to even the way of coding also, right? When you write your code, so you
Right.
written like in order to retrieve your data, you written a code like so. I need to go traverse it this way. So
Right.
suppose
So
you
it
move
will have
your
impact on performance also.
yeah, it will impact your performance. Also, it will have a rework of doing the same thing. Like you need to update
Right.
your code also. So that's the
Absolutely.
disadvantage of hierarchical model. So then it comes to a relational database
So
management.
in which
So
scenario we should go for hierarchical model?
as of now, like nobody is actually going with the hierarchy model. So previously there is no alternatives, right? So in the olden days, so that time they have used it. But as of now, either people will go with a relational database management system or the concept of NoSQL is there, right? So there is an unstructured data, like it may be a JSON data or it may be a Parquet file. So as you are working in the same domain, right, you may know,
Right.
like it's a key value pair, like each will
Yeah,
have a
key value
key.
pair.
Yeah, so in almost unstructured data is nothing but a key value pair, but each property will be associated to a key. So with that key, you can able to access it.
Right. So
So
here the data is key. So the quantum of data, the relationship between the data, and how is data structure unstructured will define which type of database we need to select.
so if you are going with an unstructured, right, even Oracle will have a NoSQL database. So or else we have Cassandra is there, like or else mm, MongoDB. All these are coming
Right.
to
So
unstructured.
basically we will have a data which is in short structured format because it comes through ETL. And what we do is it is mainly used for analytical purposing because it is used for reporting.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right.
So when it comes to relational database, right? So relational database mostly used for OLTP systems, like online analytical transaction processing systems. It will be fast. So if you go for analytics, right? So analytics, mostly the data will be residing in one place. You take the data, you represent it in a different format, how the end user is looking for it. So he may not required at like I see when a transaction is happened, like if you take any banking transaction, a transaction is happened, it has to reflect immediately. So if it has to reflect immediately in the sense, it will be like you need a at present data, at the time of data you need it. So for that time, so we'll go with a relational database. Whereas in case of ETL and all, right, it may require for the management. It's not required for the customer, right? It is required for the management to see like what is my data is, like where is actually like if you take a weekly report or monthly report or daily report at end of the day you will get it, right? So mostly that will come from the data warehouse. So data from the data warehouse, it will be all segregated data, like whichever way it is required for the reporting purpose. So it's not an immediate data. It may be a certain point of time. So that point of time is called, we'll go with a, what we call, we go with any NoSQL database also. So even we can use it for Oracle also, but mostly for at the time of data, if you want it, right, we'll go with the online Oracle transaction relational database. If you are doing some analytical processing like data visualization and all, so where it will be, it's not a point in time. It's a when you want it, right? So, but that particular point of time we are taking. When it comes to relational database system, right? In relational database system, they introduce a concept called a table. A table mainly consists of two things. One is a column and one is a row. Like take in so we have like all these vertical lines are called. If you take it, so all these vertical, like we have the ABC and all, right? All these called as a columns. There are columns, whereas here this is called a row. So in it, in Oracle, we have like 1,000 columns for a given table. You can have 1,000 number of columns, and the number of rows is unlimited. You can store n number of rows into it. There is no restriction like so you need to for this particular table you have only 1,000 lakhs of rows or like maybe 10 rows or 20 rows. So you can define n number of rows into it. Okay, we can talk about the features in the later. And also they have introduced the concepts of keys, like a primary key and foreign. Mainly with this, they make a relation between the parent and which one is a parent and which one is a child. So they divide the data into multiple tables. Suppose if you take a personal information, the person may have multiple phone numbers. They may have like a multiple addresses. Like if I take my example, so I may have a native address, I may have a working address, I may have an office address. So I may currently residing in Pune, I have another address. If I am residing, I move from Pune to another, so I may have another address. So the same actually for a given person, there are plenty of addresses. So this can be used to like this can be stored in a database. Like we can define one table for person data, and other for his addresses. Another table for in addresses. So here each person will be uniquely identified by a ID. So we call a person ID. So then we can define this as a primary. So what actually happens in primary key? So it will have certain properties like each ID should be unique. It in the sense it should not be duplicate. Cannot duplicate the information. Like suppose if I give for myself, if I give Pratik for so you take ID 1 for Pratik. If I mistake. ID 1 for Pratik and ID 2 for another person. And ID 3. So each person is uniquely identified by a particular ID. So you cannot repeat the same ID for, like suppose I cannot assign one to a XYZ. Since this ID is already is used in the table, and you cannot reuse the same ID. So while you try to insert the data into a particular tables, it will, since we define a primary key in the particular table, right? So for a particular field, what actually happened? System will start throwing an error stating that this already used it. Means it's violating the rules of a definition. So that's where the system will maintain. So you don't need to explicitly look whether this ID is already in place or not. Like suppose if you have lakhs and lakhs of records out there and you are trying to insert a data, so which is already present in the system. So that you don't know, right? You have to search and verify whether this ID is used or not, and then only you can increment it, or you maybe increase another number, right? So every time you cannot do it. So by using a primary key, the relation, so by using these keys, right? The system will automatically identify whether this is already in use or not. And also, this is another property of this primary key is to avoid the null values. You cannot put a null value in it. So null values, each database will treat it as a different. So in one particular database, null value will be treated as an empty, and some particular null value is treated as a null only. So you cannot compare two null values. One null is not always equal to another null. So that's why it will also not allow null values to that particular fields. And since we define a person here, and we do have an address for that person. Suppose the Pratik is having an address. So an address is starting with an ID 10, and so we define an ID 1, address 1 for Pratik. So the Pratiks we define, this is the Pratik ID, right? So here we are referencing this as a foreign key. So it will make a relation between table 1 and table. The same Pratik will have another address. Since it's a foreign key, right? So you can have a duplicate values. But the address ID will be unique. So address here also address ID is a primary. So address information we will store it, and when you combine these two tables, and if you want to get the information, so you can combine these tables by using this ID. So here we have the Pratik ID is available here and here, right? This is common, right? So you can make a join between these two tables and get the information. Like that, we can make a relation between the multiple tables. So that's all. Like there are plenty of other concepts will come into relation database. So we'll going forward, we'll see it. And they have started with as I said, right? It started with version 2, and it will be moved into current version is 23. And when it comes to, they have some specific symbols. With, in Oracle, we have Oracle 6i, Oracle 6i, 8i, 9i, and 10G, and 11I, okay, 10G, 11G, and 12C, and currently 23C they are going on it. So what is meant by I in the sense like internet? It supports the internet. So previously, what actually happened? If you have your database installed in your server, it only supports for your database. It will not support the global. So with introducing of I, so Internet of Things, you can communicate your data over the internet, and it will be available globally. And whereas in G means they started with a grid computing. So in grid computing, there is some architectural difference in the databases. Like each software we have their own architecture, right? So in terms of Oracle also, they have some specific architecture, like while storing the data, like what are all the process, like suppose you are retrieving some information, what are all the background process it has to run, and where my data is residing on it, how do I identify the data? All those things, they have some defined some architecture. So you have to see a particular information, or you want to update some information, or you want to write some information. They have some certain process will be performed in order to do a particular job. So that So when it comes to grid computing, right? So in grid computing, there are multiple nodes will be there, and data can be residing in any particular node. So previously there will be one node, so data will be retrieved from a particular node. Then here in grid computing, it will be a multiple node, and data can be residing in one node or second node or third node. So the system will take care about where to retrieve the data and give it to you. Whereas when it comes to cloud, right? So previously the cloud is not there. So from when the cloud is started, right? So all the applications are moving into cloud. So in order to support that, there are some certain features in the like a DB, like a installation perspective, or have a high availability and all disaster recovery. So those kind of features which are required for the cloud supporting, right? So those are all implemented from starting from Oracle policy. So like in cloud, so we do have like a data centers in the multiple regions. Like it may be in Asia region is one there, and maybe in North, like European region, there is one data center. So based on the customer pricing and based on the choose rate, they can split across the different data centers. The database will be resetting, the data will be resetting in different data centers, and they can access it. So while the accessing also, what actually happens, right? So if you have your data is spread across multiple data centers, what actually happens if some person is retrieving data from a US, so they can get the data from the nearest data center so that the latency will be reduced. So if he is trying to retrieve the data from which is residing in India, so it will obviously there will be latency. So we can avoid this like a high availability when it comes to high availability, right? So spread across multiple data centers and maintain different copies, like multiple copies of data. In the case of disaster recovery, if one data center is failing, you can have a retrieval in another data center. So it will go like one data center down. Obviously, the other data center will be up, and you will get the information from there. So it supports the cloud related concepts and all. So from 12C onwards, like if you are working with 11G and all, so it will not support the cloud related concepts. If you are working on 12C, right, it will support with the cloud related. So they have introduced all those features to the respective database installation versions, software versions. And when it comes to so there are different editions of Oracle software. So like one is Enterprise Edition. So in Enterprise Edition, one is Enterprise Edition with extreme performance, and one is an Express Edition. So the pricing also, when it comes to choose of which version I need to choose, right? So it depends upon the customer need. So whether he wants an Enterprise Edition with an extreme performance, like suppose this customer is having plenty of end users, so they are keep on using one. So you may be needed with the Enterprise Edition with extreme performance. If you don't have that much users and you have a limited number of users, either you can go with the Enterprise Edition. And also maybe specific to one particular version, if you one particular guy you are using. So then you can see, suppose I want to learn from Oracle and I need to learn all the features of Oracle. I don't need an enterprise extreme version of it, right? So I can go with an express version and I can learn it. And if I don't want it, I can do it. So the pricing also will differ from each version to version, each edition to edition. So it completely depends upon the customer need of it. So which version, which edition of database they wanted, so they can download it from the Oracle. So when you want to also download it, so you can directly go to there is some free version is available for a specific student version, for our personal use, you want to use it, right? You can register into Oracle site and directly you can download it, which version of Oracle you want to have it. And you can download it and you can utilize it. And also coming to the difference between the editions, there are certain features will be there in each edition, and certain features will not be there in the lower version of editions. Like Enterprise Extreme Performance will have all the features, like the performance related things are also available, whereas Enterprise Edition doesn't have those many. And Express Edition also doesn't have, whereas for learning purpose, we can use of all the Express Edition. So that's fulfill all the requirements. So that's about the editions. And when it comes to architecture, so basically this software, it comes with a bundle. It comes with the software bundle. it will be divided into two things. One is an instance and another one is a database. So instance is nothing but a memory basically. So in order to run any particular software, right, we need a memory also. So that memory and also it will contain some background processes. Like, so you are reading the data. So where it either reads from the cache or it has to read from the where exactly the data is residing on. So in order to identify those things, there are certain background processes will be keep on running on it. Like if you're writing the data, so suppose I'm modifying your address details. So if I'm modifying it, I'll keep your existing address in one particular place, and then I'll start updating the data as soon as the user issue a commit. That means stating that this data is correct and I want to completely make the change. So like if you get any in your banking transaction also, we can see there is a pop-ups will come, right? So making some confirmation message. Similarly, in database, there is a concept called commit. So commit in the sense, system will understand that. So it's a permanent change to a particular data. So when you issue a commit, right? So it will change the data into whatever the existing data is there, or it will whatever the new data it is, it will completely write into the physical file. So like whatever the data we store, right? Whatever the data we put into a table, that will be stored into physical format of a file. And system will have a different structure of it in order to read a particular file. In that particular file, wherein my data is there, those will come into a database. So it comes of logical structure and the physical structure. The physical structure is nothing but a data file, and whereas a logical structure is but reading the data from a data file. Like it will have a table space and segments and extents, and in the extent we'll have a data. So from that data, it will read the data and give it to the end users. That structure is nothing but a logical structure. When it comes to physical structure will have a one or two data files. It depends upon the size of the database. It may be number of data files also will get increased, and there will be a control file, and there will be a password file. The password will store all the password related information in the database, and the control file will have the overall control of the database. And we can see in detail about the architecture. We have a separate session for this, and we can see. So as I already told you, there are different people in the market. They have their own way of their own like a market leaders. They have like Oracle is the complete market leader currently, even in now also. There are other competitors for that. So the competitors are the Microsoft and SAP will have a Sybase. And IBM they have their own database. So like that, there are plenty of other people are also there. So we all now discussed about Oracle database, right? So in order to communicate with the database, so what we need is there is a tool called SQL. So SQL is nothing but a structured query language, so which will be communicated to the database in terms of retrieving or in terms of reading or in terms of writing the data into database. So by default, when we install the database, so when we install the software in the local or it may be server, so what actually the default communicated to the database is the SQL plus. It's a command line utility. So it will be like there is no user interface. You have to type a command and the data will be retrieved by based on if the command is correct, your data will get back. If the command is not proper, it will throw an error. So there are other third-party tools are also available to communicate to the same database. So for communicating, so like a Toad is one of the third-party tools. So we have to pay the license for that. And similarly, we have a PLSQL developer. This is a third-party tool. So since the other third-party tools are in place, so Oracle also started giving a tool called SQL developer, which will be free of cost. So you can get it. You can also download it from the Oracle itself. So I can show you a simple is the tool. So this is the command line. So whenever I connect it, right? So you can see it is connected to a database, which is a version of 21. It's a production version. And so in order to connect to database, you have to provide your username and the proper credentials has to be provided. So with this credential, it will authenticate it, and then once the authentication is successful, you can log into your database, and then you can start writing whatever you want to write. So I forgot my password. Now I log in there. Here you see, you cannot able to see anything here. Until unless you type a command, it will not give anything to you. When I type the command, start giving the results. Whereas in tool, right? So what actually happens? It's a graphical user interface. So similarly, I connected to the same database. You can see the different objects which are available in the particular database, like different objects. Everything we call it as an object. Like a table is one object, a view is another object, index is another object, like that procedure or package. Anything we can call it as an object. And if you start expanding this, right, so you can see what are the different tables which are available. And if you click on any particular table, right, you can see what all the other things like columns. And if you have any primary key or anything else, that also will be shown. So like that, you have a graphical. It's an easy accessible way we can say that. Suppose you didn't remember the exact name of it, so you know the particular uh, maybe particular word of it, you can search for a table. So if you know something, so you can filter it out and you can search for it. And the data reading also. So here it is, see, there are plenty of tables. So you're not able to understand what is going here. So whereas here is to see the same thing. You can see the data is retrieved and it will be in a more user friendly. So what are the different columns are here and what is the data here, what is going to happen. So you can see it here. Whereas here, the visualization understanding is little bit thick. So you have to do the formatting of your data. So most of the time, so mostly we'll not use the SQL plus, or else we can also use it. So when we use the SQL plus, what actually happens? You will remember the comments. Whereas in here, so there will be some advantage, like it auto populate the things. It will give some suggestions also for you, so that you can easily type it and you can save it. So that's the advantage of having a graphical user interface. You can save this file completely. You can save this file as it is you want. And when it comes to here, so we have different users are there. So this is the it's a super user. You can call it as. He has the complete access on it. So complete access to the system. So he can do uh, most of the DBA guys, right? So they will have the system sys access. They can do whatever they want to have it. And other than that, we have a system user. So it will have some limited capabilities compared to sys user. And there are some other plenty of other users will be there. So all those users may or may not require to be more on it, but only system users are very important user. We cannot able to delete those users also. And for every project, we'll have a specific to project. Right? That project will have some users, and you will have a password. Since it's a banking, right? So in banking domain, so we do have like every user we have a specific. There are 100 tables are there, so I want to give only some. You can restrict it like which are all tables this user will have an access to it. So those restrictions we can impose by defining multiple users or the roles for that user, and based on that you can restrict further on it. So these are tools which will be used for communicating to database. In order to communicate it, so we need to write a SQL code that is called structured query language. It may be a select statement or it may be anything. So this will be provided in order to communicate with the database. What all you want to do with your data, or you want to read the data, write the data, right? So what actually happens in SQL, right? So you can start typing the number of comments, like suppose I'm inserting the data and I'm doing some update, and between I'm deleting some data from another table. So like that, I'm performing multiple steps. Like there are around 10 different steps of it. So I'm performing in a regular day-to-day access. I'm doing all these things. So in order to do right, so you need to run this step first, and then this step second, and then this step third, like that. You need to go in a sequence. So and any person wanted to do right, this is a repetitive job. So you think it's right. So in a repetitive job, what you can do, you can go with a PLSQL. PLSQL, what actually happens? You can write a code for it and you can store it. So whenever we run these commands, right, it will never be stored in a database. It will be there in your, like suppose if you save this file, right, it will be physically stored for your file. If you're not saving, every day you have to come and write those. Whereas in PLSQL, what actually happens, they introduce a concept called procedures. They call it as subprograms. In subprogram, they call it as a procedures or functions. Or packages. What it will do, right? So whatever you are doing, right? So these 10 steps, you can name it. So you can put it into a block. So here it comes with a block concept. So this is the my starting of the block. So begin is my starting, and end it state that this is the end bit. And you can name this thing as a by creating a name. Create. It may be a procedure or a function or a package. And you can name it. So you can name it this one as a SP. And you are end it. So once you compile this code, right? So what actually happened? So if there is no errors, right, it will get stored into database. And every time you want to run it, so you can simply call this. You can call this SP. So it will perform all this job. You don't need to remember all those things, and every time you don't need to save us. Just remember the procedure name, and you can just simply call it. So it will take care of the backend, whatever all the things has to run. And so that's where the the PLSQL concepts were introduced. So it will use the, like other than that. So there is some things you want to like see. I want whatever I'm selecting, right? I have to for certain conditions only, like if the person is ABC, then only I need to do. I need to increment the debt, increment his salary by like maybe so instead of person, let's say department equal to IT, then only I need to give an increment. So then you need to give a hike to the employee. So for the salary, you need to increase by 10%. Salary into 10%. So like that, you want to do some conditionally. So that conditional statements can also be achieved in the PLSQL. Whereas in SQL, you cannot write it. So you have to write individual statements. Like suppose if it is, as I said, right? So if I want to update only for IT guys for 10%, for non-IT guys, I need to increase only 5%. You need to write a different statements. Instead of that, you can conditionally write it in PLSQL, or also if you want to move through a number of records, you want to go through each and every record and then segregate it, whatever you want to do it. So that type of information can be done using a a PLSQL. Whereas in SQL, those cannot be done. So whatever cannot be done in SQL, right? All those things come into a PLSQL. The PLSQL is nothing but simply it's a top up to a SQL, so which will give it other features like in any other programming language. Either you go with the Java or either you go with the C, right? So C also will have conditional structures and they will have some different concepts about that. So similar like if you go with the Java, Java will have a class and class will have methods and all that. Similarly here also we have a package. In package we have a specific procedures and functions, and each function will do a specific task. So you are doing some particular calculation. So you can for regulatory reporting also you do have some sort of different calculations out there. You can define for one particular calculation, one method, one function, for another function we have another. So like that you can segregate it, and based on that you can utilize it wherever you want to have it. So those functions will be stored inside the database. You can reuse it. N number of times you can do it wherever you want to in your code, right? You can do it. That's an advantage of the PLSQL. This is all about the oral demo, and I think so they have already shared the like what all the topics which I'm going to discuss. Right? Topics what all will be covered in SQL, what all will be covered in PLSQL. So I think the team will be shared with you. If not, I'll ask them to share the topics which will be going for. So if you had any doubts, right, so please.
And no, nothing from my side.
Okay, Pratik, that's it for the demo. And so in detail, right, each topic will be discussed in brief, like each topic will be discussed in detail. Since it's a demo, I just covered it up in the high level. When it comes to the topic, right, so we have a detailed what is this and what how to write the code and how it will get executed and what is the steps in being done. So all those.
Okay. So will hands-on practice would be done during the session, right?
Yeah. So like see, whenever a topic is discussed, right, I'll give some examples like how it will be executed. And let's say suppose since it's a demo, right, I just give some one or two examples here. So whereas it comes to practical, right, we make like we create a number of tables like 5 to 6 tables will be created and how it will insert the data multiple times. And so it's a ongoing process, right? We'll keep on creating the tables, keep on inserting the data into it. And I give some certain part of it. Maybe you can further. So if you want to more extensive, right, you have it.
Okay.
And for your like data, most of the cases when it comes to reality, right? So mostly when it is a fresh development, if the project is a fresh, right? You may get a chance to create a number of things. Whereas if it's an existing development, right? So mostly you may, even in my case also, I may be less creating the tables. So mostly I deal with the data retrieving or data manipulation in existing data in reality.
Right.
Yeah. So suppose if there is an existing enhancement, maybe what you do, like see the data table is already present, you maybe in order to store the new data, so you may add the new columns. So that's how the process will be. But most of the cases, generally the table creation will be very less compared with the data retrieval.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe you can add the columns, but not the table creation. But the procedures functions when it comes to PLSQL, you keep on creating the procedures function packages. When it comes to PLSQL, the requirement will keep on changing. So you will be either modifying it existing one, or you can create
Mm.
it.
So database designing would be taken care, right?
The basic like how we can design the database.
Okay.
I can ask them to share the topics which I'm doing. So if there is anything missing, so we can have this.
Sure.
Sure. Good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for Hello.